What's going on, everyone? Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Fun day of the week. Tuesday, a great day for drinking whiskey. So we have on today some fun guests from Two Soul Spirits. But before we kick it off, let's see who we have in the chat. Just pop in some names. Let's see who's all on. Make sure you guys drop a comment. Let's see who's dialed in so far. I see Gandy Road. What's going on, Gandy Road? How are you? AKA Ron. Good to see you. Kathy, you want to know what's in everyone's glass? I hear you, Kathy. What's in everyone's glass? Well, obviously, I am definitely drinking some Two Soul Spirits, and hopefully, you guys will be drinking that pretty soon as well. After you hear the great whiskey these gentlemen are putting out. What else do we have here? I see. Is that Hold on. Oh, the Starlight Honey. Very nice. My last barrel pick. There we go. There we go. I love it. Tennis Gator. Good stuff, man. Great choice. I'm a little biased because that was picked by myself and some fellow patrons. So definitely pretty cool. That's awesome. Who else do we have in the chat? Esther. From Virginia Beach. Virginia Beach is such a cool place. We almost went there as a family this year. I was trying to convince Mrs. Judge, but she had other vacation minds and our other vacation plans in mind, Esther. So unfortunately, we did not make it there. My apologies from that one for sure. I see Court is in the courtroom. What's going on, Court? How are you, sir? Good to see you. Sipping on some Starlight. That's awesome. Very nice. Very nice. So cool. Good to see everyone. Always fun. Hey, good evening, Eric. The South Carolina connection. Very nice. Eric, what are you sipping this evening, Eric? You always have something great in your glass. Every time we always connect, Eric's always drinking some good whiskey, so I know you're having fun. Who else do we have on as well? VB Tom. What's going on, Tom? How are you, sir? Good to see you. Good to see you, sir. Indeed. Esther, I promise I will definitely let you know. Absolutely. The next time I'm in town, we try to get all over, at least like the East Coast, right? I mean, we're up and down the East Coast as the family. We are more into like the 3-4 like day kind of quick trips where we are quick weekend trips, if you will. So if I make it down to Virginia Beach, you have my word. I will definitely circle back for sure. Andrew, yes, I did see that you just joined today. So Andrew, welcome to the Judge patron family. Really appreciate it, my man. Thank you so much. Absolutely. All right, so I've been on for a couple minutes. Let's go ahead and bring on. So everyone, this is a new and upcoming brand. If you guys saw my episode just a couple of days ago, actually, I did an episode called, Top 10 Up and Coming Brands. And when I think about up and coming brands, these are brands that I think have such a long runway in terms of like their their development, in terms of being able to put out some fantastic whiskey. And I've had a chance to sample one of their whiskeys, which is not even here anymore because I finished it. I couldn't wait until the live stream, so I had a bit of a problem because the whiskey was just that good. But this brand is truly an up and coming brand. They are, bringing to the market some fantastic single barrels, and I really respect, how they're kind of going about it. So we're going to bring on Chad and James from Two Soul Spirits. So let's go ahead and let's bring in James first real quick.
Hey, how's it going?
James, how are you, sir?
Good. Thanks for having us. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's go ahead and bring your partner in crime on the line as well.
Hey, Judge.
Chad, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How's everyone doing tonight?
Good, doing well. Thank you. Well, thank you guys for joining the channel. I really do appreciate it. And thanks, by the way, for sending over these samples as well.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So I have
a little bit what's left over of your rye, actually.
That rye was, so everyone, they sent me some samples, and one of them was the Finger Lakes Distilling rye that was just flat out amazing. Like, I mean, like really, really good. I tried to wait until we had this session, but sometimes you just can't control yourself. You can't control yourself sometimes. At least I can't. So
okay.
Yeah, I can control myself. So I have the other three here. I just stopped it, right? I stopped. I didn't even drink the other two. I grabbed the one, and then I didn't even drink the other two because, sometimes whiskey could be so good. You're like, just stop it, Judge. So Chad and James, before we dive into just Two Soul Spirits, and we're going to dive into everything about the brand, but how did you two gentlemen meet? Like, how did you guys kind of, I guess, from a whiskey standpoint, how did you both get into whiskey, and then how did you guys end up meeting from that perspective as well?
I think I'm probably responsible for Chad's Chad's whiskey issues. I've been doing it for a while before I met him. I started out like writing for Bourbon Sippers, doing some reviews, and then I started picking a lot of products for local liquor stores, a lot of single barrels.
Okay.
And so I just kind of got into it that way. I had a couple friends 10, 15 years ago who started to introduce me to a lot of good stuff. And then when I got a hold of Chad, I think Chad, you were only drinking like Macallan 12 at the time, right? And in little minis.
Yeah, it was widely available where I worked. So yeah, James quickly got me off that. We were talking about it not too long ago. I had forgot, but it was the 1792 port finish that I think put me over the ledge. And yeah, it's been going strong since. That's probably like 6-7 years ago.
Yeah, I just kept challenging him with new stuff and bringing him new things. Whenever I travel, I'd bring stuff back. And I think each one of his birthday presents for about 5 years was a new bottle of bourbon. So I just slowly tainted him until we got to where he was like, let's open a company. Why not?
Absolutely. Yeah. That's awesome. Okay, so obviously, James, you were the culprit. You were the I don't want to say the mastermind behind it, but you were like the driving force. And you're like, all right, Chad, we've been sipping whiskey long enough. Let's start our own company, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's actually a pretty good story. We were sitting around about 2 years ago. I think it was at my wife's birthday party, and we were talking about a pick I just made for a local store and how good it was and how one sold out. And Chad's like, "What do you get for this?" And I was like, nothing. Like, I don't get anything. I was just doing it for fun. And, I'd get a little discount on a bottle here or there or something. And
sure,
it gave me stuff to write reviews for and things like that. But he was like, man, there's got to be a way. Because he has a business degree. So he's like, man, there has to be a way for you to make some money doing this. And so we just kind of came up with this idea. It was something I had sort of heard of with Scotch, but really wasn't that available in the US. And so we thought we'd give it a shot.
Okay, cool. Very nice. Very nice. So keep me honest, because I think this is something for everyone out there. And I know I talked to some of my patrons the other day. We were kind of going back and forth, and they were asking about Two Soul Spirits and so forth. So is it fair to say that, and I think it might be, but you guys thus far, tell us about like your process. Like, I believe you're only sourcing single barrels. Is that kind of a fair statement?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
it is. Okay, cool. And what was the thought and logic behind, like, so many different brands? A lot of brands are sourcing whiskey, but a lot of brands are taking those barrels, obviously all single barrels, but blending them together, sometimes doing like multiple different finishes and so forth. But what was your thought process on just kind of like just taking single barrels only versus doing the whole small batch approach, if you will, which is what a lot of people are doing?
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I know for James, like, being a purist, I think like the truest expression of like craftsmanship is directly from a barrel. Of course, like you could have multiple barrels next to each other and the nuances are, a little bit different, but
Indeed.
I think that was part of the fun of it, with maybe finding something that was so unique and so distinctive to that distillery that like really made it fun to allow us to give it as an expression to like for everyone to try and that was the ultimate goal. So that's kind of why we went that route. And being new to the business, there's, jumping in and blending right away was a little bit burdensome, I'd say, but it doesn't mean it won't happen in the future.
Okay. All right.
When we started talking to some folks in the beginning, like we kept running into the same conversation with distilleries. They're small distilleries. They're sort of stuck with just local distribution. And I was talking to one of the folks we were working with right in the beginning. He was like, you know what? Like, I have some absolutely like killer barrels. And he goes, but if I release them, it's going to just be the same 200 people that always buy them, So like, I have these great products, but it's not really expanding my base to just release it in the distillery. And that sort of led us to, okay, so we can take really unique products, some of your best barrels, maybe some one-offs, something that's off profile, but that's still really, really good. And we can get that to a much wider audience than they can. And I think the single barrel, like Chad said, was kind of the purest expression of that. It also means that everything we do is super limited, right? Everything's 150 to 200 bottles. and every release we come out with is completely different. So
that's awesome.
More variety for our customers. It's rare. And I think we're getting the best products from the distilleries we work with.
Absolutely. No, and I love that. And cheers, by the way, Rob Sullivan. Thanks for joining in. Cheers to Chad and James for joining us as well. Great point. Thanks, Rob. Yeah, and I love the fact that you said, you're right, from a pure standpoint, being able to just find great whiskey. So one of the things I love about you guys and your brand is the fact of two things. Number one, you're very transparent, right, to the fact that you're sourcing your whiskey, right? And I like that because sometimes some brands kind of hide behind it. There might be, certain things on the website, like our great-great-grandfather started something, 300 years ago. And it's like, I don't know how true that is. But you guys are very transparent. But I also like the fact that you call out which distilleries are your partners. And that was really exciting for me because, like, when I tried, for example, and I had to stop because I liked it so much, the Finger Lakes Distilling rye that you guys sent me a sample of, I was blown away for two reasons. A, fantastic whiskey. B, I never had a chance to try a Finger Lakes Distilling product because at least where I live in Delaware, I've never seen it. It might be sold in maybe like Northern Jersey or some places closer to New York, but I've never seen it before. I've heard of their products before. So trying it from you guys, I'm like, all right, well, this is a bottle I now need to go online, which I need to do, and buy this bottle from Two Soul Spirits because the whiskey was really, really good. So I love the marketing side of what you guys are doing. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I always say if we know it, you guys know it. Like there's, everything from mash bill to age to barrel char. We're going to be coming up to the American single malt that we finished in an apple brandy barrel. We tell you when we transferred it into the apple brandy barrel and when we transferred it out. So we give as much information as we possibly can. And I think both of us want people to know why we make decisions. Why did we pick this barrel? Why did we decide to finish this barrel? Why did we leave it in a finishing barrel for 3 months versus 6 months? I want to spread as much of that as I possibly can, because that's what I want to know when I drink whiskey.
Yep. Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Completely agree. All right. Well, speaking of whiskey, let's definitely dive into some of these whiskeys. So I don't know where we want to start. I think I want to start with this Watershed, actually. This one here, so it's aged 4 years. And you guys gave me the card as well, which I love. This is right on your bottles as well. So this one's aged 4 years. Barrel char number 4, coming in at 123.04 proof. So nice little kick there. That's not bad at all. Mm-hmm. This is good. All right, open this one. So I've already poured this one already. Kind of let it open up a little bit. So Watershed is cool because I can't get it, number one, by me locally. The only time I can get Watershed products is if I am out in Ohio visiting my mother or even hanging out with some of my patrons as well. I have a ton of patrons out in Ohio. So that's the only time I can get, Watershed products. But luckily, obviously, you guys now carry it. So I think that's pretty cool.
Have you had a single barrel from them before?
I have not. I've only had like their, I think it's like their small batch product. I believe it is. Okay. Yeah. So just one time. So this is the first time. Nice, literally. Nice. Cool. Yeah.
Yeah. This one was pretty special. This was, one of the first barrels we picked, actually, and it recently actually just won double gold at the John Barleycorn Awards, which was kind of cool.
Oh, nice! All right, yeah. Pretty cool.
Yeah, this was we bought both of the barrels that you're trying today. We bought them both at the same time.
Okay.
And there's some really unique stories behind them. I think this one we tried a ton of different bourbon barrels while we were there. Ooh. Watershed bourbon in general is very heavy, very funky, very earthy kind of a bourbon. I absolutely love what they do. This one was just a little bit off profile from their normal stuff. I found it to be a little fruitier. There's some like apricot-y pot still notes on it.
Indeed, absolutely.
Notes in there. And I just thought it was an entirely different barrel than anything I had from them before. And so as soon as I tried this, I knew it was a barrel we wanted. And we put this in our first release. So this was in our inaugural release, which was just about a year ago.
Okay. Oh, so this was awesome. Okay, good to know. Good to know. Yeah, this is very powerful and bold. It's funny that Columbus, Ohio has so many great distilleries. I mean, we were talking earlier about Middle West. Obviously, this is, from Watershed as well. I mean, this is really, really powerful. And what's funny about it is that, so it's aged, about 4.5 years. It almost sips like it's aged like 6 or 7 years because it has such complexity and depth to it, right? And that's what goes back to having a single barrel. It can be so different.
Yeah, and
It's so
that's
cool.
that's one of the things that you'll notice, especially if you drink a lot of 4-year bourbon, you're going to get stuff that is very grainy still. And this one wasn't
Exactly.
very grainy to me. I can taste the grain in a good way. I know what it comes
Sure.
from. I can tell what it is, but it didn't have that really young, youthful flavor profile to it. And part of the reason we wanted to release this one right off the bat too is we wanted to show people that you can have a 4.5 year bourbon, a 5-year bourbon. The drink's fantastic. This
Absolutely.
is not one that you're going to give to people and they're going to be like, oh, that's a super young pour.
You would never know. Never. I'm telling you, you would never know.
And so I think the double gold, and it was also in the John Barleycorn named Best American Craft Spirit for the spring of 2023. I think that really sort of justified what we were going for in this one, because we were really proud of it. And I think this is Chad's personal favorite. This is
I shed it here.
Okay. So Chad put his name on this one. This is Chad's barrel.
Yeah, that's what I should have done. I should have stamped it.
That's awesome. No, this is really good. And Doc, you're right. Two Souls is definitely amazing for sure. Definitely amazing. This is really nice. Really, really nice. So I know a lot of people, in the chat right now, a lot of different states, right? Virginia, ton of people actually in Ohio as well, but all over the map. From a shipping perspective, I know you guys are online. Are there any states that Two Soul Spirits can't ship to, at least as of now, but maybe in the future if things kind of change and so forth? Like, what does that look like from like a shipping standpoint?
It sometimes fluctuates, just on a month-to-month basis. But unfortunately, we don't ship to Delaware. But you're close to other states that we do ship to. So we can't ship to Rhode Island, Delaware, Utah, Missouri, Hawaii, Alaska. Let's see, New Hampshire, and I think that's almost them all. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So
I think we're in like 43 or 44 states, something like that. So you got pretty good coverage.
You got really good coverage. I mean, 43, 44 states. That's a lot. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. And it's good. We're happy because that's the goal, right? To like get. We really want our products to go as far as possible from the distillery we get it from, just so people can try something new and
absolutely,
maybe plan a trip for, in this case, when they're in Columbus, maybe they'll pop in Watershed and
definitely. I've never been in Watershed before myself. I mean, and this honestly does give me reason to now visit when I'm there, and I'm always in Ohio visiting family and stuff. So this will definitely give me a reason to pop into Watershed for sure.
And Watershed was one of the, like, I had sort of like a hit list when we started this. I was like, I really need barrels from these places. And Watershed was right at the top of my list because I had been a fan of theirs for a really long time. The first time I visited Watershed, it was like 2 dudes and a still in the back, and that's all it was. It was this little tiny place, and they weren't even making whiskey at the time, but they knew I worked for Bourbon Sippers, or I was writing for Bourbon Sippers, so they give me a little taste.
Okay.
And this was even a different recipe than what they're using now, but I could tell it was going to be good. I could tell they were really excited about what they were doing. So I followed them pretty closely over the years, and they were one of the first places I wanted to hit up. And I was absolutely just blown away by how great they were to us when they came. I mean, they had a big spread, and there was a bunch of people trying barrels with us and stuff, and just some really phenomenal products. And this one just jumped out. I was super happy to have this as one of our first releases.
That's awesome. No, that's cool. I mean, it's great whiskey for sure. It's and you're right. I mean, a lot of it in the whiskey world is all about just like connections and networking and so forth. That's what whiskey's all about, right? Sharing it and having good people that you've obviously knew from previous years, which is awesome. So I know when you think of like, obviously you're in 44 markets, which is awesome from a shipping standpoint. Retail wise, what are your thoughts on retail and stores? Is that like a distribution channel that might make sense for Two Soul Spirits down the road, or what are your thoughts from that standpoint?
So right now we're in a retail store here in our town, just limited allocation, just a case of each release. I think to do the distilleries justice, online is really where we want to focus. Just again, it all comes back to like sharing the message, making sure the message is shared properly, because a lot of times, it can get misconstrued if you're not the one like constructing it and the customer's coming to you.
Correct.
And then just getting it out as far as possible. So trying to just, get it far from the distillery and spread its wings just all over the States,
All over the different states. That makes sense. That makes complete sense. Yeah.
It would, and honestly, like, our shipping for like one bottle is $15, just flat rate throughout the US.
Okay.
And, sometimes we'll run specials. If there's 2, you get free shipping or whatnot. But I don't know. We try to keep it really fair and just make it economical to get like really good single barrel product at a decent price as best as we could.
That's good. Chat, you're talking my language, man. That's what everyone loves. A, great quality whiskey. B, single barrels, which those are hard to get, right? Honestly, they're hard to get. I mean, like I said, I've never had a single barrel from from Watershed. I've never had a single barrel from Finger Lakes Distilling, from the other one that you guys sent me. So, I mean, being able to have a product that I just can't get myself because I'm not in that market. I love the concept, right? I think you guys are probably one of maybe only like 2 or 3 that I know of, at least, right? And I kind of consider myself a little bit of a whiskey nerd, as my good friend Josh would say, from Stuff and Whiskey. I consider myself a whiskey nerd. I think you guys are just a handful of like 1 or 2 people or different companies that have a similar model that I at least know of, and I think it's awesome. I love what you guys are bringing to the market. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, traditionally everybody has just gone to MGP, right? But I fell in love with craft whiskey when I was doing reviews for Bourbon Sippers, and I got to know a lot of craft distillers, and I understood what they were struggling with. And of course, if you've been in the whiskey world for a while, there was always a stigma against small producers, that it was young, it was too expensive, it wasn't very good, and you could get all these big production stuff that was better. And that narrative really started to change 3-4 years ago when people started to have 4, 5, 6-year-old product. And, some of the stuff we've released is 8, 9 years old. And so it's just a different playing field now than it used to be. And I think our ability to get those products out to as many people as possible is what we're all about. We hand select everything. And I think that's key to our model too, is these are not single barrels that you would get even if you went to the distillery. And we'll talk about that with the next 2 for sure. But certainly this bottle of Watershed you're trying now isn't probably one that would have ended up to be a single barrel even at the distillery. So everything we have is really exclusive and unique. And we put a lot of time into making sure that we get the best products and the most unique barrels that we can.
That's awesome. No, that's great. Thank you for that, by the way. I really do appreciate that. That's a really, really good insight. So Kathy has a question regarding, do you ship to Tennessee? I know it was about 44 states, but I can't remember if Tennessee was one that was in or out.
Yes. Yep. We should. We'll send it right to you, Kathy. No worries. Right to your door.
Kathy. Yeah, right to your door, Kathy. Yeah. So, Kathy, you might have to send me some of your whiskey, or I guess, you know what? Luckily, Delaware is so small that I have tons of friends and family members that live in like Maryland or New Jersey. So I'll have to call some of my cousins and say, hey, you have some bottles coming to your house, just so you know.
Yeah, you can drive a few blocks down the street and be in another state and grab it, and you'll be good to go.
Literally. I have tons of people like right around the corner in the state of Maryland, which is sad how they do that. But liquor laws are so just crazy. That's a whole nother story for another day. But Kathy, you're good to go. It looks like, so that's awesome. Yeah. And then Doc says he loves the transparency. Yeah, I agree with you, Doc. I think it's awesome, the transparency. From that perspective, it's nice to see that, because that's not I think some companies are trying to be more transparent, but you guys are like, flat out like everything. I've never seen anything like this before, where you give like every single detail of the mash bills and the exact age down to the month. That's almost kind of uncommon, if you will. So that's cool though. I love it. I love that.
Thanks. Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. We spent to Doc's comment, we spent a lot of time agonizing over, our bottle, and then our toppers, our wives had a say in this, nice and fancy glass toppers. So your whiskey will never get corked. That's for sure.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah,
the ladies helped out with that one.
Money on those, but they're really nice. Yeah.
All our profits go with the topper. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. I'm glad we made your day, Kathy. That's a good thing. Or at least I didn't make your day. I guess technically Chad and James did, but that's awesome. Well, let's dive into this next one because I've this is one I was like I'm really interested in trying this one, and I know earlier I think earlier James, you said this is one where even if I went to Watershed in Ohio, I wouldn't be able to buy a barrel like this or even buy a bottle like this. So what's the story behind this next one?
So when we did that initial trip, I had reached out to Greg, the owner at the time when I was trying to figure this out. And I was like, hey, like if you guys have anything interesting too, like just totally different and you don't know what to do with it, I'd love to try it. And he got back to me and he was like, well, you know what? We have some barrels tucked away of American single malt. And he said, it's been back there 5 years. I haven't tried it. Nobody even knows what's going on with it. So when you're here, we'll just crack them open. And so I got there and it turned out half of them were 100% malted barley. Half of them were 85% malted barley and then 15% smoked malted barley. Ooh. So sort of in 2 lots, we tried a bunch of different barrels and I landed on barrel 921, which was just amazing. It had nice chocolatey notes in it. But what's really unique about this is they aged it for 5 years in a new char barrel, in a 5 char barrel, which I've never heard of anybody putting an American single malt in a 5 char barrel. But it gave it gave it a real rich, heavy mouthfeel. And I was sitting there and we were trying the products and we had a little bottle of apple brandy off to the side. And I was like, So I took a couple drops and put it in there. And I was like, man, that's nice. It tastes like a caramel apple. And so right there, we decided to buy a used apple brandy barrel off of them. We bought the single malt, transferred it to the apple brandy barrel, and just gave it a unique finish. But Watershed has never released an American single malt. So this is the first single malt ever from them. We're releasing a cast strength with a unique finish. So this is about as unique as you can get in the whiskey world.
Oh my gosh, this is really nice. Wow, so aged 6 years, 1 month, and 11 days. You guys are like, you want to talk about being precise? You guys are like straight up precise. And I saw that comment earlier. I think it was from, Tennis Gator said, even your website, here it is. Even your website is extremely accurate and like detailed. And yes, I mean, you guys are truly very precise. But I love that. I mean, so it's aged 6 years and 1 month. And you're right. This is not something, even on the nose, it's smoky. It has that sweetness from the apple brandy. It's so different. I don't know if I've ever smelled or even know something similar to this.
I thought it was like, it reminded me, like, honestly, like, if I was blindfolded, this one would throw me through a loop. Like, I would almost think it's some sort of, like, bourbon. Like, I consider it like a bourbon drinker single malt, especially if you're not really, like, a fan of single malts or looking to get in. This one, This is another one of James's creation where I'm like, I don't know, man. Like,
James is like a mad scientist. I like it, but I like it a lot. This is really cool.
We were a little worried about it. But I knew it needed some brightness. I wanted to bring some brighter notes to it and some liveliness to it. But I didn't want to mimic Scotch and put it in a sherry barrel or anything like that. I love their apple brandy. Apple brandy's an American spirit. This is an American single malt. So I said, let's give it a roll. But it ended up, and we tried it. So to give you a little bit more transparency in the process, when we tried it at about a month or 2 after we put it in the barrel, I was like, this just tastes like somebody dumped apple brandy into a smoky. It was like you were floating it on top almost, like you could tell the different parts. And I got worried. And that after about 3 months, we tried it again. I was like, all right, I'm starting to feel it mingle. And over time, it just started to meld a little bit more and a little bit more. And the last time we tried it, I think this was in a barrel for 9 months, Chad? 9 months.
9 months. Yeah. That's awesome. That's
at about cool. 8 months, I was like, done. It's perfect. This is great.
It's nice.
Like it got to the point where it tasted like one unified spirit rather than 2. The nose integrated really well. I love this. I'm super proud of how this turned out. I think it's not anything you would get from anyone else, which is what we're shooting for. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Let's just say I'm not a typical single malt fan. This is ridiculous.
Isn't that cool?
This blows out even completely different, but this blows out the Finger Lakes rye that I loved. This is fantastic.
You're
This is
knocking it off
fantastic.
the pedestal. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's going from gold down to silver. We have a new gold member right here. This is amazing. Is this still available online on your website?
We have 9 bottles left on our website right now. So,
wow.
And this is one of those where, like, when we're done, like when this is gone, it's gone. Like, I couldn't replicate this if I tried. So
wow.
this is it. So if people want this, they need to get it while it lasts.
Man. Wow. This is, I know I see some people in the chat that I know are huge into like just like different type of expressions. I see Terrence as well as Troy. Cheers, by the way, gentlemen. This is a bottle that you definitely may want to try to log on and grab. This is like really, really good. Oh my goodness. And I see what you're saying earlier. I think Chad, you said it almost kind of reminds you of like a bourbon drinker's kind of a single malt in a way, because it's sweet, but it has a little bit of smokiness to it. And it doesn't have like that apple caramel kind of a smoke element to it, but it's absolutely amazing. And honestly, if you were blinded, you probably wouldn't think that this was an American single malt. You probably wouldn't think that, actually. You would not.
This one would be super fun to have, you know, when you have friends over doing a tasting. Don't even tell them what it is and just see the crazy answers you're going to get.
Oh, man. That's good.
Yeah.
This would be good with a cigar. I kind of feel like I want to keep this for a little bit and cherish this later tonight with a cigar. Those are the ones that I love a lot. That might have to move into a separate category for a little bit.
I think people hear apple brandy and they think it's going to be sweet. And there's some of that. There's the fruitiness, but it's not a super, super sweet pour. Their apple brandy is really dry. The single malt was really dry, had some smoky, chocolatey components to it. So this was, it turned out great. Like we couldn't be happier with what we ended up with on this one. And we got a couple really good reviews from it. And you know, people were sort of slow to move on it, I think, because they see single malt and they get a little scared. It's not bourbon. We got a couple good reviews and things just started to build up. So
I'm telling you, Terrence, and I saw your comment, Terrence, and on the screen here. Terrence, I get it. And I'm not honestly a big single malt guy. Really not, right? I'm trying to kind of, you know, turn a new leaf, if you will, for American single malts. This is completely different. And I think, honestly, the apple brandy, being the fact that, to your point earlier, sounds like, James, that you had it in the barrel or in the second barrel for a little bit, but it took 9 months in that apple brandy barrel for it to really kind of, you know, smooth out and become like what it is now. Terrence, it does not taste like a normal American single malt. I can guarantee you, because I know your palate, you would love this bottle. It's flat out amazing. Really, really good. Oh man.
Everything we do, if we finish it, it takes a different amount of time. I mean, how long was when we did the hazmat rye, Chad, that was in the rum barrel. We put that in for what, 3 months?
Yeah. I like that's like something we've been trying to do, is not finish something too long. And just some people, we feel like it may try and hide something. We just want to use it to, you know, just bring to light just something nuanced about it that we're trying to go for, or just something better, make it a better expression of itself rather than, you know, covering something. So we really try and limit it. But this one, it needed 9 months to get to where we thought it could get. And knocked it out of the park on this one.
Yeah, that was good.
I see Troy's comment here. So Watershed releases a couple blends where some of the bourbon in the blends is aged in apple brandies, but they've never actually released a single barrel bourbon that's apple brandy finished, or a product of bourbon that's just apple brandy finished. So this is a little bit unique on that aspect for them too. And this is a cask strength at 114.8, which I think is rare for a single malt too. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. No, wow, that's really, really nice. All right, so before we move on to the next one, I want to just kind of talk a little bit about, so you guys, maybe if you can give a quick overview of the distilleries today that you're partnering with, and if you're able to share, and if you can't, I completely understand for, you know, maybe any type of privacy reasons, but any distilleries that you might be partnering with in the future. So for today, for example, obviously, of course, Watershed, obviously Finger Lakes. What are the other ones?
We have Yahara Bay in Fitchburg, Wisconsin, but it's Madison, really.
Okay. Madison, okay.
Sutherland Distilling, which was in Livermore, California.
Yep.
And unfortunately, they decided to close their doors in February of this year. So I think they're closing down operations, and
Okay.
looking forward to the future. James, how far? Let me. I can put it this way too, and then I'll let James take it further. Some of the top 10 brands that you wrote about to watch in your upcoming. Some of those are on our.
Okay.
We already have
Okay.
barrels, or we're working with them. So yeah, it's we're excited.
Okay. That's cool.
We got a couple more Ohio distilleries coming up. We got some new
Ooh.
Wisconsin distilleries coming up.
Wow.
I love how whiskey ages in Wisconsin. It's cold as hell in Wisconsin.
Yes, it is.
And then you get to the summer and it's hot as hell in Wisconsin and it's dry. So our barrels tend to add proof fairly quickly when we keep them in our warehouses in Wisconsin. So we have some just absolutely killer rye and bourbon coming out of Wisconsin.
Absolutely. That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So I think I know who you guys are talking about without saying it, but if anyone else out there, just definitely make sure you watch my last episode, and you'll see the distillery or distilleries within Ohio as well as Wisconsin. And you could probably put 2 and 2 together, but that's cool. I like it. That's cool.
Well,
that's awesome.
We definitely drop hints in our newsletter online too. So like if you go to our website and scroll to the bottom and sign up for it, we do our best not to spam anyone, and we give little hints, and pretty soon we're going to announce what's happening next, and I think it's going to blow a lot of people's minds.
We didn't release anything in the summer because we just didn't have any barrels that I thought were ready to go.
Thank you. Let's pause right there. Thank you. Because the easy thing to do is to go ahead and just release barrels, even though you have them aging, even if they're not ready. So I love the fact that you just said that. I want to repeat that. You guys did not think that any of the barrels you had were ready to be released. So that's awesome. And shout out to you guys and kudos to you guys for, in my opinion, honestly doing the right thing, which is hard to do when you're running a company. So thank you for that. But
yeah, we fully planned on releasing a couple barrels for the summer. But when I tried stuff in like March, April, there were some that were close, but it just wasn't quite where I wanted it yet. But I just made a trip up to Wisconsin a couple of weeks ago, and I tried all like 11 or 12 barrels that we have resting in one day. And I was like, okay, we're ready to roll. So we have 2 things coming out for the fall. Since we didn't come out with anything in the summer, we're going to come out guns blazing for the fall. So we got a couple barrels coming out that I think are going to move the needle a bit. People are going to be excited for what we have coming up.
Nice. Awesome. So sounds like Copper Wolf grabbed one of these apple brandies. So now you're down to 8 bottles from 9.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's awesome. Thanks, Copper Wolf. We love it. That's good stuff. Yes, Troy, I think it is Middle West Spirits. If we're putting two and two together, Troy. Hopefully, right? That's the case. Hopefully so, Troy. So here's a question for you guys. So obviously you guys are partners. You guys do everything together, which I think is awesome. How often and how do you settle when, like, you both are kind of tasting different barrels and you're like, one of you is like, you know what, I think this one's ready to go to the market, and the other one's like, I don't know, I think we need another like 2 or 3 months. Like, how do you kind of make that decision? Because you're equal in terms of like your process, but your palates are, I'm sure, are slightly different. So how do you kind of figure that out? Because that's difficult, I would think.
I default to James on everything, and then he can also bench press more than me. So,
and I would, if we ever had a dispute, I would make it a bench press competition. It's not going to be any long runs or anything like that, Chad. So
yeah, in all honesty, like, I think James has trained my palate on over many years of like what's good, what to look for, and I think I can't remember a time we've come to a disagreement, and so I mean, and
you're pretty aligned.
Yeah, and I've and before we started Two Souls, just knowing what he picked in the past for local stores and how well received it was, it's a no-brainer that his palate is exceptional. And one thing about James too is, like, even let's say you didn't like something, Like
Mhm.
he can convince you that you do like it.
I love that. He's like a true salesman. He's like, no, trust me, Chad. This is pretty darn special.
Yeah, yeah. I call him like the whiskey sommelier or the whiskey doctor. One of
Yeah.
the.
I think that's why this works so well is, Chad trusts me to deal with the whiskey end. I trust Chad to deal with the business end. So we have our roles, but we consult each other, when we're making decisions on things. And it just works. It works really well like that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's really cool. Thanks, Carlos. Cheers to you as well, my friend. Really appreciate you watching tonight.
Although I will say I have worried Chad a few times. He was worried
really?
about a couple of the barrels, and he was worried about a couple of the decisions to finish things and stuff. So I got him a little bit worried because he was looking at financial end. What happens if
he wanted to start the company with 147 proof rye. I mean, it's scared
Oh, I love it. I think I'm closer to James. I think I'm closer to James now that I'm starting to understand the two of you a little bit more. I think I'm more aligned with James, even though the dollar does definitely important to me as well, right?
He turned out being absolutely right with that because I think Breaking Bourbon reviewed it as one of the best ryes of 2022, and that was the first one we launched, and I was like, all right.
There you go. And those guys, I will say, it's funny because there are a lot of different forums, obviously myself and 1,000 other channels online, but Breaking Bourbon, I think their reviews are 9 out of 10 times typically are spot on, and I would agree with what they what they write up and so forth. I'm pretty much kind of aligned with them for the most part. Obviously, some nuances, some differences, but I definitely do respect whatever they kind of say and so forth is typically definitely spot on for sure.
Yeah.
So the cool thing about working with craft distilleries is that, obviously, to your point earlier, James, craft distilleries, I do think they've done a great job of kind of, proving the point that, craft distilleries, they don't know what they're doing. They truly do. They put their time, their effort. I mean, it's like their life's work right into their whiskey, and you can tell. So now that you guys are obviously, you had your original 4 to 6 distilleries you were working with. Now it seems like you're kind of expanding into some other distilleries in Ohio as well as Wisconsin. Do you think, is that like a let's call it like a future roadmap for Two Soul Spirits? Would you continue to kind of look even outside of the core states that you worked in before and start to look at other distilleries? I know, for example, this has been popping up in the chat a little bit, but a lot of the distilleries down in Georgia, some distilleries out in California. Are you starting to look at other distilleries as well? And, kind of looking at, to your point, you said earlier, James, about the weather, for example, in Wisconsin. Are you looking at certain distilleries in Georgia or Texas or California and saying, you know what, Chad, I think we need to look at X, Y, and Z in, next year, 2 years? How big is your I guess your target for future years for distilleries that you partner with?
Chad, do you want to?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. We'll go anywhere. We definitely already have some lined up in the Southeast here. Obviously, that makes it easy from working out of Gainesville.
Yeah.
But I mean, just so your listeners are aware, and I'm not sure if you were so our bottler and where we keep all of our barrels is actually in Madison, Wisconsin.
Okay.
At Yahara Bay Distillers. So once we buy barrels, we send them up there just because nothing ages really that well here in Florida. So
I'm sure.
we'll go anywhere, and
you will. Okay.
Just kind of starting with what we know and what we've heard of in the groups we're in, and we'll expand outwards for sure.
I think our biggest challenge is representing what we do properly to distilleries, because I don't think a lot of folks get it yet. There's just not a whole lot of people who do what we do, and so
there's not. There really isn't.
And so they view it as a regular single barrel pick. Or I'll call them and say, hey, I'm an independent bottler, and they're like, well, we already bottle all of our own stuff, and I'm like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm not looking to contract bottle for you, right? So
yeah,
there's a little bit of educational piece, I think, and so it's usually a fairly lengthy process where I call them, try to explain what we do, send them some slides, call back, try to explain what we do again. And I think once people get it, and especially they see, we've sold out 5 of 7 barrels that we've released, and we only have apparently 8 now of the American single. So we're about to do 6 of 7. Once they start to see that, they get it and they understand it. And so I think there's some people who have maybe been waiting to kind of see what we do and see where we go, who are now coming online and are interested in working with us. So I think you're going to see it expand. You will see some of the same folks pop up here and there. This fall release, I'll just go ahead and tell people we do have something coming from Yahara Bay, which we work very closely with. So you'll see some of those pop up again. We still have another Watershed thing that we're working. Okay. So you'll see all those, but you're going to see some new states sprinkled in now as well. But I think what's cool about it is we have as an independent bottler, we get to put our fingerprint on whatever we do. Part of that is sending it into Wisconsin to age, but we can also let it rest longer. We can finish it. We can do a variety of things with it, whatever we feel is the best way to kind of portray that barrel.
That's awesome. That's really cool. Does your you mentioned earlier your newsletter that you have on your website, does that let you know, like from an alert standpoint, when like new products are added like to your lineup? Like, so for example, if I see something, I can just, oh great, I got the email from Two Soul Spirits or whatever the update, now I can go online and buy whatever I want to buy. Is that a feature that's there? It is.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yeah, we want to make sure like the people that support us, we can do our best to support them first. And so we want them to have first access.
Yeah, newsletter folks get first access to stuff. You get updates on things. We tend to drop hints to the newsletter folks. This last time we came back and we re-released our 2 Hazmat Ryes, which were in our first 2 releases that everybody was, we would get like an email a week that was like, hey, do you guys have any more Hazmat Rye? I'm like, it's a single barrel.
Can you make the single barrel come again, please? Can you reproduce this, please?
I don't know what to tell you, but enough people asked that we were like, we have like 15 or 16 bottles laying off to the side that we kind of set aside for awards and for ourselves.
Sure.
Like, well, we'll release them. So
awesome.
Newsletter folks got first dibs at those. So
all right,
you're not following the newsletter, please do, and that make sure you get early access to stuff.
That is top of mind for me. Newsletter. I got it. Mental note. Okay. Good to know. Good to know. That's awesome.
We might send you some samples anyway, but you should get on the newsletter.
I appreciate it. No. Thank you. No, I need to. Trust me. You guys have some great stuff coming out soon. So I need to make sure I can, grab my full bottles. I mean, I love the samples as well, but I'm going to have to buy my full bottles as well, because I'm really excited. This is awesome. This is so cool. I love the idea of how you're able to, as an independent bottler, acquire like unique single barrels, but then the fact of like aging them in this case in Wisconsin, that probably even adds a whole nother, just element of like change to like the whiskey. That's so cool, so different too. It really is.
Yeah. We have one from a distiller here in Florida actually that we brought up there. So that's coming along really nice, and we double barreled that, and I mean, most of our other stuff, I think the longest thing we've had there is basically that barrel, almost 1.5 years now. So,
okay. Some of them, I think the one we're finishing, well, I guess some of them have been there for getting close to 1 year. There's a couple Ohio barrels there that have been there for 1.5 years.
Okay.
Not that Ohio is too much different in terms of Wisconsin when it comes to weather, but
sure,
it definitely adds something different. Like I said, the warehouses we keep them in, it's cold, it's hot, there's tons of airflow. I've seen where the barrels are at and where they're stacked, and there's just lots of air moving through there. So we put on some proof pretty quickly. I mean,
I bet
within 6 months, sometimes we'll see a little bit of a spike in stuff.
I'm sure. All right. I think it's time. Let's move over to this. So this is from Sutherland. So I know you said with Sutherland, and I read that as well, that they made the decision to kind of close down and so forth. So does that give you, I guess, like the ability to like acquire like additional barrels? Because obviously I assume they probably want to, get rid of inventory. Is that a good thing for you? Maybe obviously not a good thing long term, because they're not, they don't have more, obviously there's only so many that they can, keep in stock and so forth. But how does that impact Two Soul Spirits, being that this is one of your, at that point, one of like your core partners?
Yeah. I mean, basically, we won't be able to get any more from them.
Yeah.
We didn't know at the time. It was
Mm.
a few months after we had purchased the barrel, so we called that one the Ghost Barrel, just to kind of make it fun and let people
Okay.
know it's one of their last barrels of bourbon that they have. So um,
Wow.
that was a pretty special one.
That's awesome.
It was nice to just like get their name out there, let
Yeah.
people appreciate what they've done, and
Sure.
send the crew away on a high note.
On a
Um,
high note. That's awesome. So
yeah,
they're fully done. So no
Yeah.
more potential barrels from Sutherland.
No.
Okay. Okay.
I don't know if they ever even had a single barrel release. Maybe to like actually he did mention there was like a one group or an individual that liked to purchase a barrel, but other than that, was their Navy Strength gin? I think they were really popular for.
Yeah.
And,
This was
and
a really small distillery, like
Yeah,
really
it
small.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
Good to know. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Very nice.
When we went back and looked at their barrels, I'm seriously like 20 or 30 barrels, and that was all they had.
Oh, wow.
So they
Okay. Oh, so
described
really
themselves
small.
as a micro distillery.
Okay.
And
Okay. That's cool.
it's an interesting story. Chad had been out in the San Jose area and tried some products, and we had flown out there to pick an American single malt, and
Mhm.
it didn't work out with that distillery. It just,
Yeah.
and that's one of the things for us is sometimes price wise, it's just not going to make sense.
Sure.
But I had set up a couple additional meetings, and one of them was with Sutherland, and we went
Okay.
there and we tried through their entire lineup. I liked a lot of their stuff, but I wasn't really blown away by it. And then they were like, well,
Okay.
we have these like 3 barrels of 100% corn bourbon. They're like, but we don't want to sell those because we do, we're planning a special release with it. And I was like,
Sure.
well, I'd like to try them. And
Yeah.
they brought them out, and my eyes probably lit up and got huge because I was like, oh yeah, these are my boys. I like these barrels.
I like it. I like it.
So we left thinking we weren't going to get any. And then like 2
Mhm.
months later, they called me and they're like, actually, the owner's wife got a new job and they have to move and they're closing it down. So if you guys want these,
Oh,
we can
wow.
talk about selling them to you. And I was like, absolutely. Yeah, I want them.
Nice.
So
Very nice.
that's why we called them ghost barrels. They don't, it's a mothball that doesn't exist anymore.
Doesn't exist. It's a wrap.
No. So these
That's
are
awesome.
absolutely the last products that you're ever going to see from Sutherland. In my opinion, it's by far the best whiskey they ever made. It's
Okay.
really unique in terms of it's 100% corn, but it doesn't taste like mellow corn. It doesn't taste like a corn whiskey per se. So
True.
I just thought it was a really fun bottle, and it's a chance to try something from a distillery that just, isn't around anymore. It's the
Isn't
last
around.
what they did.
Absolutely. No, absolutely. Well, cheers, gentlemen. Thanks for the for this sample for the from one of the, I guess, like the last ghost barrels from Sutherland. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Cheers for sure. Mm.
Are you warming up to that one? I know last time you thought it was a little too sweet for you, right?
I am warming up to it. It has at the end of the palate. I did not get this the first time I tried it, by the way. So the first time I tried it, I enjoyed it, but it was a little too sweet for me. This time it actually mellowed out a little bit, and it has, which is very odd. I don't normally get this, a big major grape note at the back of the palate, like grapey, kind of a grape note. And I like that though. That is pretty cool. That was not there the first time I tried it, actually. So this has actually changed on me a little bit. I love how whiskey can change sometimes.
Yeah.
This is it's a surprising whiskey. I mean, we've had people drink it and they think it's spicy, and it does have some spice notes to it, which you wouldn't get for 100% corn whiskey usually.
Sure.
I get a lot of I get like toffee covered popcorn. There's this really cool like peanutty note in it that sort of that finishes on your palate, almost like a peanut skin, which I just love. I fell in love with it the first time I tried that.
Indeed.
I think it's a super cool bottle. It's just really different. It's unexpected for a corn bourbon.
It is very, very unexpected for a corn bourbon for sure.
I think that's one thing we're going to start doing is like when you purchase something, eventually this email will come saying like how James recommends to do this, just because like we all get caught up in our ways of normally like approaching something, and honestly, so many like expressions just require different ways to approach them. So Like this one, like yeah, like James told me, he's like, you gotta let it sit for like 15 minutes, and it did change. It kept changing, and it was really neat. And honestly, like sometimes with the proof of our whiskeys,
Mhm.
um, Glencairn may not be the best type of glassware to drink it out of, just because it's
Okay.
shooting the ethanol like straight up your nose. Sometimes it's a
Sure. Sure.
Kenzie or those neat glasses. If you have those,
Oh yeah.
those are a
Oh
little
yeah.
fun to drink out of.
You can't drink out of them, but
Absolutely.
you can sniff out of them.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
can about them.
yeah, you just can't drink.
Oh, yeah.
Or sometimes just the bottle. No, just kidding.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or just the bottle. That's awesome. So one question I have for you guys, and this was really good. I love the Southern one as well. That was really neat. It was actually kind of cool to see how it changed from when I first did the review on the Finger Lakes and that one. This is not completely different, but I think it's definitely different in a positive way because for me now, I do love that grapey note to it. That's really cool. That's very different. I didn't get that the first time. But I
Yeah.
want to kind of go back real quick to this just one off from Watershed, this apple brandy. So the big rave obviously in the market today, right? Everyone, I'm sure even a lot of people watching right now on the channel, everyone loves apple brandy. Obviously, this one here, Grand Slam. These are all actually home runs, but this one, Grand Slam, right? It's still available. Only 8 left after Copper Wolf. People are now loving, like, you have the Ambarana, honey, and so forth. I know you guys are purists at heart, but you did make the leap of faith, even for example, with this one here, with the apple brandy. Is that something that you think in the future you're going to look to once in a while explore more, like more finishes, not just apple brandy, but other finishes as a whole? Not all the time, but like once in a blue moon?
I want to be selective with what we do. I don't want to finish something just to finish it.
Okay.
And so we have a couple of things now that we're doing double cask and triple cask, and some of it's that reusing
Oh,
barrels that we have. And so I
okay.
don't think enough people do that. Like
Okay.
we have a double barrel coming out soon where both the barrels we used are from the same distillery, but they had different flavor profiles. And so you can sort of add little nuances to it without changing the DNA of the product because they're both
The
from the same
whiskey.
place.
I
And
like
so
that.
we have the ability to do really fun stuff like that.
Okay.
We had a rye that had aged really, really quickly. And it was like
Okay.
3.5, 4 years old. It had a
Sure.
little bit of a bitter note starting to peak in the back, but I
Okay.
loved the rest of the whiskey. So we transferred it to one of our used rye barrels. It was an 8-year barrel. I was like, this is perfect. One, that rye was awesome. And two,
Okay.
it pulled out a lot of that char already. So it's
Sure.
going to age it without adding any extra char. And it turned
Correct.
out it's great. So I think you're going to see us do a lot of stuff like that.
Okay.
I'm always open to unique finishes, but it depends on the whiskey. With this American single malt, I wanted to do something to bring out, like I said, a little bit more brightness, so it made sense.
Sure.
I didn't want to do anything to the Ghost Barrel. Like I just thought
Okay.
it
Yeah.
was
Leave that.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was awesome. It was doing what I
Yeah.
wanted it to do.
By
So
itself.
I didn't see any point to it. But we do have a couple things. One of the fall ones coming out is finished. I think one of the ones that probably coming out around Christmas time will be finished as well.
Okay.
But it's a risk versus reward thing when you dump something into another barrel. And
So
none of the
true.
single barrels we buy are they're all great. It's just
Yeah.
whether or not you can add a little component to it that just kind of takes it to the next level.
Yeah. I like the fact that you said that for example, like from a finish standpoint, you don't always have to use like a Ambrana or a honey or whatever it might be. I love the concept of just using, you even said like even 2 or even 3 times, like, triple different finishes, like just like standard, like other barrels that were like aged. I think you said like 8 years, for example, dumping like a whiskey from the original barrel into that. That's really cool too by itself. And I'm sure the different, like, complexity it picks up, from that barrel, but then also coming from like a new location in Wisconsin, probably just throws that whole whiskey experience, like, like in a, almost like in a washer, kind of a washer machine kind of an environment. So that's really cool. You guys, obviously you have a really good, understanding of the whiskey and how, kind of make things like, take things that are great and almost even making them even better. So I like that. It's pretty cool.
I can tell you one thing for sure is I'm never going to do an Ambrana barrel. I'm going to go on
never.
and I'm not going to do an Ambrana barrel.
I like it.
My gosh, like I tried something that was finished for like 9 months in an Ambrana barrel, and I was appalled. I was like, this is way too heavy-handed. Like it covers over the whiskey. I think you need to finish it in maybe we'll do one, Chad. We'll finish it for like 35 seconds in an Ambrana barrel, just to say it was finished in there, and just like pour through one side. That wood is so porous; it just soaks up that whiskey, and you get so much flavor in it quickly. And man, I
love that.
I don't know. We tried one that was finished for like 4 days, and I was like, "That's all I would do." That's
too much. Yeah, I get it. I understand that. The finished whiskeys live in a particular lane for sure. They definitely live in a unique lane. I respect them because I do like, and not all. I will say, let me be clear. I've had some finished whiskeys where I'm like, wow, this is not done, not to my personal preference. But then I've had other finished whiskeys where I'm like, this is like a home run, right? And I love it. And some can be Ambrana, some can be honey. Just kind of depends on the finish. But you're right though. I mean, and I get that. But I think it's pretty funny. So everyone, if you're watching, so Two Soul Spirits, never a Ambrana finish. Do not expect that. James gave it
in 5 years when I do one, you can bring me on and make me eat my words. But
that's all right. I'm going to hold you to it, James. Trust me. I'm going to hold you to it. My wife always tells me I never listen to her, but for some reason, anything whiskey related just sticks in his brain. Anything my wife says never sticks, but that's another story.
No, honey, maybe. Maple, I think, is an entirely different beast because aging something in a maple barrel is just a disaster. But we'll play around with something like that. I do like honey finishes. Bell Mead back in the day, man. Some of their honey barrel stuff was just. And the key is it has to be like fresh honey. You have to get a fresh barrel and do it. So we might do something like that. But I'm gonna swerve way outside the lines to avoid Ambrana for a while.
Okay, that's cool. Well, I will say, I always say this line as well. If you ever need help, Chad and James, with tasting whiskey, so forth, like Judge, we need you to come out to Wisconsin. Trust me, I can make the trip out on my own expense. I love to get out there and hang out with you guys. So just let me know.
Not a problem.
Let me know. For sure.
You got to hook us up with some Delaware spots, man. We'll make a trip to you, and then we can do it that way.
Awesome. Sounds good to me. And Eric, yeah, absolutely. I love what they're doing. Also, they're putting out some fantastic whiskey, and I do love the fact of all jokes aside, I do respect the fact that the majority of what you guys are doing is pure, like non-finished, like just true single barrels, so unique, such really great whiskey. So yeah, great point, Eric. Really good, great point there for sure.
And that's why that's why I was so happy that you liked the rye as much as you did, because I think that Finger Lakes rye for me is a perfect example of what we want to do. Finger Lakes makes amazing products. They're very different. His style is really mimicking old school whiskey. We released an 8-year wheated bourbon from them that was like a Dusty from the 70s. And
really?
Oh man, It was just crazy. And that rye is just so good to me. And it's surprising. It's rich. It's only 105 proof, but it drinks flavor wise like it's 120. It's just such a super cool barrel. And that's why I was so happy that you like that, because that barrel is really what I want to do. And as soon as I tried it, I knew that was one that we wanted to release.
Yeah, that was a truly a unique bottle that I thought was absolutely amazing, especially from a brand that I never had before. From a distillery, I should say, I never had before. And it was such great quality. And I love, again, I think this year for me, even personally, has been the year, kind of like what your motto is. There are so many great craft distilleries out there that are I think are under appreciated, if you will, right? And I love the single barrel that you guys put out there. That bottle, by the way, is still available on your website. I think it's still available, right? Yeah, it's still available. That is flat out amazing. I mean, it is truly amazing. And I never had that distillery before or any of their whiskey. So obviously you guys selected a hell of a barrel, and it was really, really good. Like
just shy of 7 years. It's like Christmas in a glass to me with some funk. Like there's a lot of baking spices, a lot of rich notes in there, and then just this really funky undernote. And they proof everything down to 100. So everything is barrel entry of 100 there. And you just end up with a mouthfeel and a richness at 105 proof that is just impossible. I mean, it's crazy what they do. And I love, we have another product coming from them at some point that you're going to want to tune in for too.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Good to know. Good to know. Yes, Rob, don't worry. I'm definitely trying to break down Chad and James with at least a honey finish. So, and fresh honey would be the way to go, as James said, for sure. And thanks, Cord. I appreciate that comment as well, man. Definitely appreciate that. All right. So one thing I would love to learn and maybe kind of better understand is that, so, it seems like, and this is not for everyone, but a lot of companies start out either, sourcing and so forth, maybe blending a little bit, but eventually end up moving to like the whole contract distilling world. Is that something, not saying like in, the next 12, 24 months, but even like long-term, but is contract distilling important for Two Soul Spirits? Is that something that, when you and James set up, kind of set everything up together as a company, as an organization, like, what, hey, we're going to start out doing this, but our long-term goal is potentially to, have our own whiskey. What are your thoughts, Chad and James, from like let's just call it making your own whiskey down the road, eventually, potentially?
Yeah, I think we'd primarily like to focus more so on like craft distillery, either blends we put together or blending from a specific craft distillery, to make kind of a signature product that we have, maybe 1,000 bottles of. But I think I think we both think that variety is the spice of life. And I think it's kind of neat to be able to put different things together from different either geographic areas or different distilleries or, contract distilling would be kind of fun, but, and I think to make it big scale, that's how you honestly have to do it. But I don't think we're fortunate enough not to have to be in that position where that's how we have to pay our bills. So I think it's we could have a nice time, either doing the single barrel, program and then, supplementing it with, blends from craft distilleries or different areas,
Absolutely,
things like that.
That's cool. I don't see us going into that, at least not in the near future. I mean, for us, the goal of this was always really to get the names of these distilleries out there. That's what I really am excited to do. That's what I've always wanted to do. And I've said on a lot of shows before, that the story isn't our story; it's the story of our partners.
Absolutely.
I'm a professor, Chad's a pilot, and that's like the end of the story.
I love it. Hey, that's a good thing.
That's all there is to it, And
nothing wrong with that at all. Nothing wrong with that at all.
This is what I've been doing for a while. But I'm really passionate about working with these craft distilleries, picking barrels that I think put them in the best light, and then sharing that with folks. That's what I always did. When I had people over at my house, when I had Chad over, and I was force feeding them a bunch of bourbon back in the day, like that. That's what I did. I was like, hey, you got to try these guys. You got to try this one. Yeah, you got to try this one. Like this one's super cool. This is just me doing it on a bigger platform, right? That's what I love about it. I think it's super fun. So we'll probably stick to that. I do think we will do blends at some point. Like Chad said, maybe within a state, something like that. So we'll have like an Ohio blend and a Michigan blend.
Oh, that would be pretty cool.
Like that. But I also don't want to go too big scale on that because, you start putting 4, 5, 6 distilleries in a blend and everybody loses their identity. And that's not what we want to do. We're all about, this is where we got it from. This is their taste profile. And so I don't want to do anything to dilute that message.
Yeah. Respect that. And I'm glad you said that. And thank you for that, by the way. I do think that holds a lot of weight in terms of just, being respectful to the brands you partner with and so forth. And, trying to keep their own distillate, let's call it, respected like in the marketplace and so forth. Right. So, completely see the fact that you might want to do some blends to kind of, do like an Ohio blend, right? A couple of different distilleries, or even like a Wisconsin blend. But for the most part, your goal is to, represent each brand and get that out to market to the, the 44 plus markets and states that you ship to, which I do respect. And I'm glad you guys are doing that. I think, just kind of respect your time to kind of wrap up. For me personally, one thing I love about you guys is the fact that, you are taking fantastic single barrels that I know myself, for me living in Delaware, which I have access to a lot in Delaware between the states that we touch and so forth. But I love the fact that you're taking fantastic single barrels and you're able to ship those to 44 plus states, where many of us would never have a chance to try a Watershed, 8-4-year barrel, or a Finger Lakes Distilling 6-year rye, or my winner for the night. I still love, oh man, this Watershed finishing apple brandy. 8 bottles left after Copperwolf. Maybe there's less now, but this was like completely unique, right? And I love what you guys stand for, at a fair price. Shipping also very reasonable as well. So I would say, for me, number one, just keep doing what you're doing. I love the brand. I love what you guys stand for. And then I also, last but not least, love, and I mean love, the transparency, what's on your bottles. It says everything on your bottles, from the age, the proof, the barrel char, the number of bottles. You can't get any more transparent than Two Soul Spirits, literally. So thank you, gentlemen, for that. I really do appreciate that.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. Yeah. And if anyone ever has a question about anything, on our website, there's a contact form. Shoot us a message. We'll get, either James or I will get back to you. And if we can find an answer out for something you want to know, we'll do it. So transparency is the name of the game. And we're excited to be on here tonight and introduce ourselves to your followers, and
thank you.
Encourage everyone to just go to the site, get on the newsletter, and you can join the Two Souls family and try some good whiskey.
Definitely. That's the first thing I'm doing, right? When as soon as we end this broadcast, I'm going directly to your website to get my sign up for your newsletter. So that's for sure.
I'm gonna end on this one because I know you like it, and it's my favorite. So I'm gonna end on that one for the night.
I'm jealous. Super jealous. Good stuff. Well, gentlemen, thank you all for your time. Really do appreciate it. Thanks everyone for checking out tonight's episode. James, Chad, cheers, gentlemen, to you guys. Keep doing what you're doing, and look forward to being a customer of yours for many years to come.
Thank you guys.
Cheers, everybody. Cheers, guys. Bye-bye now.
Thank you. Good night.